As most of you already know, Skyrim is a massive game chock full of mysterious secrets and hidden details. The game is so big that even 11 years after its release date, players are still discovering new things about it every day. So in today's video, I'm going to take 10 minutes of your time to show you a bunch of hidden details you may have missed while playing Skyrim. Let's begin by talking about some rated R scenes that the developers left for some keen-eyed players, starting with this letter for Delvin Mallory that you can find in the Ragged Flagon. It's written by Vex, another Thieves Guild member, and by the sounds of it, Delvin was caught casing out of valuable assets, if you know what I mean. Unfortunately for Delvin, however, Vex caught him and threatens to cut off his most valuable assets if he's seen doing it again, which is enough of a warning for any man to scurry away. But if that detail wasn't blatant enough in what it was implying, then take a look at this Reichling hideout in Benkongerike, where you can find a secret stash of lusty Argonian maid books with linen scraps conveniently placed next to them. I wonder what they're using the cloth for. Speaking to the lusty Argonian maid, the book seems to garner many fans that prefer to keep their possession of the book low-key, such as the Jarl of Morthal's son, Yorick, who keeps it tucked away under his bed for those lonely nights. Also hiding the book is Arcanium librarian Urag Groshub, who has it displayed in a case for all its glory. Even Mercer Frey is a fan who keeps the book near the bust of the Grey Fox, and I don't really want to know why. But with that out of the way, how about we talk about some details that actually might be useful? You might think that Skyrim's gameplay is pretty shallow, and for the most part, you'd be right. However, players tend to exaggerate just how shallow the gameplay is, as they most likely don't know about some of the hidden mechanics that the game allows you to do, especially as a stealth character. For example, did you know that you can pickpocket the Briarheart straight out of the Forsworn for an instant kill? You did? Alright, well, how about you can pick up bear traps off the ground and set them somewhere else for an unsuspecting bandit? Or what about the fact that the quiet casting perk in the illusion skill tree, which allows the player to cast spells silently, also works with shouts too, which I know kind of defeats the whole idea of shouting, but still, it's a really useful thing to know. Finally, you can also light up unlit sources with fire spells. There was even a special cut content arrow known as the water arrow, which was going to let players extinguish light sources from the game, an addition which would have been very useful, so I'm not sure why they decided to remove it from the final version of the game. However, none of these tips are really useful unless you're going through the game all sneaky beaky like, so why not talk about some tips that you can use regardless of your playstyle? Starting with the fact that you can skip the long and boring animation for mining ores and instead just swing at them as if you're playing Minecraft. Hell, you can even dual-wield pickaxes like some crazed ore collector. But if that doesn't seem too helpful, then I'm sure you'll appreciate that wolves will finally stop attacking you if you become a werewolf, which can be useful at times, since the wolves of Skyrim can be so damn annoying. Speaking of werewolves, you probably found out that the companions have the curse of lycanthropy whilst playing through their questline, but if you happen to speak Hungarian or Lithuanian, then you might have already figured this out on your own, since Farkas and Vilkas, both of which are members of the companions, their names translate to wolf in Hungarian and Lithuanian. Skyrim has a lot of these small but appreciated little details. For example, how can mammoths have different styled tusks depending on whether or not they're tamed by giants? Wild, untamed mammoths have clean, smooth tusks, while tamed ones have runes carved into their tusks by the giants as a sign of ownership. A more subtle detail is the fact some stone busts of faces in Nordic ruins are modeled after the default male Nord preset in Morrowind. Skyrim has quite a lot of these tiny references to previous Elder Scrolls games. I'm sure you're already well aware of Maik the Liar and Sheogorath making their return, but you may have missed Ulfgar, the unending feasting in Sovngarde. For those of you too young to know, Ulfgar was a character in Morrowind who asked the Neverarene to fight him to the death so he could achieve an honorable death and reach Sovngarde. So, it's nice to know that his wish was fulfilled. There's also a reference to another Elder Scrolls game during the intro. If you choose to play as a Redguard, Hadvar will ask you, "You a sellsword, a sailor from Stros Makai?" If you're one of the 8 people that played the Elder Scrolls Redguard, then you would know that he is referring to Cyrus, the main protagonist of the game who journeys to Stros Makai. But you know what's cooler than subtle references? Actually getting to see the Imperial City from Skyrim. If you go to the southern border of Skyrim on a clear day and climb up to a high enough elevation, or just use console commands if you're lazy like me, then you can actually see the iconic white gold tower in the distance. Speaking of Cyrodiil, while traversing through the Ratway in Riften, you may have to fight an Imperial named Gian the Fist, who happens to have a unique set of gloves called the Gloves of the Pugilist, which is one of the few items in the game, that isn't Daedric anyway, that has also been in previous Elder Scrolls game, in this case, Oblivion, although it remains unknown how they managed to make their way from Cyrodiil to the Ratway of all places. But whilst on the topic of unique items, did you know that aside from the obvious buffs which are listed in the item menu, the Nightingale armor also has a secret ability? If you're wearing a full set of Nightingale armor while you have a random encounter with a thief trying to rob you, then they will instead praise you for providing them with good luck and give you a share of their dubious earnings instead of robbing you like they normally would. Now, that's what I call honor among thieves. There are many secret encounters and pieces of dialogue, like with the Nightingale armor, which can only be seen if you have chosen a specific path or done a certain action. One such encounter has to do with determining a new innkeeper for the Bannered Mare in Whiterun. By default, the Bannered Mare is owned by Hulda. However, if something were to happen to her, then there would have to be a new person to assume the inn's ownership. Normally, this would be Mikhail, the inn's bard. However, if you were to speak with Isolde beforehand, then she would have explained that she has hopes of becoming a merchant, wealthy enough to buy the inn off Hulda one day. And as long as you helped her out by fetching that mammoth tusk for her, then her wish will be fulfilled after Hulda bites the dust. Another encounter is with General Tullius. If you decide to finish the Dark Brotherhood storyline, ending with you killing the current Emperor of the Imperial Legion, Titus Mead II, and then decide to join the Legion afterward, because you just can't decide on anything apparently, then General Tullius will leave out the late Emperor's name from the oath that you have to recite. Speaking of the Dark Brotherhood, this questline can also let us obtain a one-of-a-kind fork. How exciting! While wandering the wilds of Skyrim, you may encounter Balbus, a Nord who lets his admiration of the gourmet be known. If you decide to kill him like the psychopath that you are, then you can find a unique fork of all things called Balbus Fork. But if you're feeling merciful, you can also convince Balbus that you are the gourmet and show proof via the rite of passage which you receive during the Recipe for Disaster quest, where you take on the disguise of the celebrity chef. Choosing this option will make Balbus sing praises to you about your recipes and dishes before he gives you a bunch of ingredients he's been collecting and his unique fork. And although his fork is nice enough, what I want to know is the story of how he managed to get a Daedra heart. But I can understand if a measly fork wasn't good enough of an addition to your home decor. So how about I help you work on your meat collection, starting with acquiring something that you may have missed in Helgen. During the game's introduction, you may overhear Ralof remembering his time in Helgen, specifically how Vilod used to make mead with juniper berries. Well, if you make your way back to the ruined hold after completing the first quest Unbound, then you can find the mead Ralof was talking about on the second floor of Helgen Homestead. If mead is a bit too simple for your palate, then how about some Colovian brandy? This unique item can only be found during the Diplomatic Immunity quest, where you infiltrate the Thalmor embassy disguised as nobility. During the quest, you are required to create a distraction to slip away from the party unnoticed. One way you can go about this is by talking to a drunken Redguard named Razalen, who will happily create a distraction for you, as long as you provide him with some of that sweet Colovian brandy. Accepting his offer will let you pick up the brandy from the bar. However, instead of giving it to Razalen, simply offer him a different drink instead. Doing so will let you keep the drink for yourself, so you can show it off to your friends whenever you throw a party at your house. The Dragonborn does throw parties, right? But if alcohol just isn't strong enough, then how about some skooma to dull your senses? Double distilled skooma to be exact, because the regular stuff just doesn't give you that hit anymore. Well, thankfully this unique item is a little easier to come by. Double distilled skooma is a radiant quest item that you can fetch for Stan's Shallows, an Argonian beggar living in Windhelm, who will tell you about his skooma cravings and will ask you to bring him a bottle of this extra strong skooma from the Nice's Corner Club. However, unlike the previous entry, giving Stan's Shallows the skooma won't lock you out of getting the item ever again, as it will respawn in the Corner Club every few days or so. Lastly, if you're looking for something a bit more equipable, then maybe this next entry will suit you. However, you will have a very small window to acquire it. During the final quest in the Dark Brotherhood questline Hail Sithis, you must board the Emperor's ship, the Kataria. Once you reach the Emperor's quarters, you should first check out his bedroom, which is guarded by a master lock door. Inside, there will be a shelf where you will find the Gilded Wrist Guards, a one-of-a-kind set of gauntlets that can exclusively be found at this location, so be sure to collect them. They are unfortunately quite useless, as they have no armor rating or special ability, but I'm sure you'll find a display case to throw them inside. But anyway, that's all for today, folks. Leave a comment and let us know what you thought. And if you liked the video, click the like button, and if you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so.